The conference room at the National Medical Ethics Council gleamed with polished mahogany and bad intentions. Dr. Eris Thorne sat at one end of the table, his jaw tight, his custom-tailored suit feeling like a straitjacket. Across from him, Dr. Helen Vance refused to meet his eyes, her fingers drumming an anxious rhythm against her leather-bound portfolio. "The evidence is compelling," intoned Councilwoman Margaret Hayes, sliding a thick file across the table. 37 patients. Falsified post-operative reports. Data manipulation that spans both your institutions. Eris shot forward in his chair. "That's impossible. I personally review every report?" Hayes cut him off with a raised eyebrow. "That's 342 procedures in the last 18 months. Dr. Thorne, are you telling me you have photographic memory?" The room fell silent. Eris felt the trap closing. He was meticulous, yes, obsessive even, but he couldn't remember every detail of every case. That was the point of having a system. Helen finally spoke, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "St. Jude's has the most rigorous post-op protocols in the state. If data was manipulated, it had to be done at the source. Someone had access to our internal systems." "Someone," Hayes repeated, "or someone's. The pattern suggests collusion. 2 hospitals, 2 prominent doctors, a coordinated effort to inflate success rates for a joint research grant application." Eris and Helen locked eyes for the first time. The mutual accusation was unspoken but deafening. "Your research methodology is flawed," Eris said, turning back to Hayes. "Helen Vance has been cutting corners since her residency. If anyone's data is suspect—" "Let me stop you both," Hayes interrupted, her voice cold as surgical steel. "Your legal teams have suggested a unconventional approach. You're to be sequestered together. No phones, no internet, no outside contact. You will reconstruct every patient file from memory and cross-reference your notes. If the data holds, you're exonerated. If it doesn't—" She let the threat hang in the air. "Together," Helen's voice cracked. "You want us to work together?" He accused me of fraud on national television. "And you called me a dinosaur with a scalpel in the Journal of American Medicine," Eris shot back. "I think we're even." "Enough," Hayes said, rising from her chair. "A car is waiting. You'll be escorted to a private cabin in the Shenandoah Mountains. You have 72 hours. The council will reconvene Wednesday at noon. I suggest you use your time wisely." As security guards flanked them toward the exit, Eris caught Helen's eye. Her expression was unreadable, a mask of professional composure. But he noticed her hands were still trembling. Neither of them spoke during the 3-hour drive into the mountains. The rain started somewhere around Charlottesville, a steady drizzle that thickened into a torrent as they climbed higher. The black SUV wound through switchbacks like a serpent through tall grass. Eris watched the forest blur past, his mind racing through possibilities. The data in those files was his life's work. Every patient, every procedure, every outcome, it was all meticulously documented. If someone had altered it, they had access to his private records, his team, his hospital, his life. He glanced sideways at Helen. Her face was reflected in the window, pale and drawn. He'd spent years dismissing her as a cowboy surgeon, brilliant but reckless, driven by ego rather than evidence. But looking at her now, in the dim light of the car, he saw something else. Fear. The same fear that was coiling in his own chest. The cabin emerged from the mist like a ghost. A 2-story A-frame with a stone chimney and a wraparound porch. It was beautiful, remote, and utterly isolated. "Cell service doesn't reach here," the driver announced, handing them a single key. "There's a landline for emergencies. No internet. Groceries and supplies are stocked for a week. Good luck, doctors." The SUV pulled away, and the silence rushed in. Just rain, just trees, just the two of them. Scene 2, the cabin. They circled each other like wolves in unfamiliar territory. The cabin's interior was rustic but comfortable, open-plan living area, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with copper pots hanging from the ceiling, and 2 bedrooms at opposite ends of a narrow hallway. "I'll take the east bedroom," Eris announced, dropping his bag on the nearest bed. "You always take the east bedroom," Helen muttered, claiming the other. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've read your hospital's organizational chart. You always position your office on the east side. Sunlight in the morning. Better for strategic thinking. It's textbook narcissism." Eris stared at her, equal parts furious and impressed. "You memorized my hospital's organizational chart?" "I memorize all my opponent's weaknesses," she said, slamming her bedroom door. He stood in the hallway, seething. Opponents. That's what they were. But somewhere beneath the anger, a perverse respect flickered. She'd done her homework. She was as prepared as he was. The first 3 days were a grinding, exhausting war. Day 1. They worked at opposite ends of the oak dining table, stacks of paper between them. Like a no man's land. He'd criticize her methodology. She'd call his approach robotic and inhuman. By midnight, they'd made no progress and were both nursing glasses of scotch from the cabin's well-stocked bar. "You know," Helen said, swirling her glass, "if we fail, I'm going to blame you. If we fail, it's because you couldn't follow a protocol if your life depended on it. My patients survive because I trust my instincts, Eris. I don't hide behind spreadsheets. I don't hide behind anything. I'm transparent. I'm accountable. I'm perfect? Is that what you were going to say?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "We both know you're terrified of being wrong. That's why you create these elaborate systems. To protect yourself from the one thing you can't control." He was about to fire back when a log in the fireplace cracked, sending a shower of sparks up the chimney. For a moment, they were both silent, watching the flames dance. "Control is an illusion," he said quietly. "My father taught me that. The hard way." She looked at him, her guard slipping just a fraction. "Your father. The surgeon who... the one who gambled and lost. He drained his scotch. Yeah, that one. He didn't trust data. He trusted his gut. And a patient died because of it. My father never forgave himself. I made a vow never to make the same mistake." Helen was quiet for a long moment. "My mother died when I was 12, she said finally. "Cancer. She was diagnosed too late because the doctors kept dismissing her symptoms. I became a surgeon because I wanted to be better than them. I wanted to see people, not just their charts." They looked at each other across the table, and for the first time, the rivalry softened into something else. Understanding. Scene 3. The collapse. Day 4 began with a storm that shook the cabin to its foundations. The rain was relentless, horizontal sheets that battered the windows like an invasion. Eris woke to find a note from Helen scrawled on the kitchen counter. "Gone to check the generator. Back in 10. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. The storm intensified. A tree branch slammed against the roof, and Eris felt his pulse quicken. He pulled on his boots and stepped outside into the chaos. He found her by the generator shed, soaked to the bone, trying to restart the auxiliary power. Her hair was plastered to her face, her coat clinging to her like a second skin. "The power line's down," she shouted over the wind. "I think the main breaker." A deafening crack split the air. A massive oak branch, torn from its trunk by the gale, came crashing down, straight toward Helen. Eris moved before he could think. He lunged, grabbing her by the waist and hurling them both sideways into the mud. The branch smashed into the generator, showering them with splinters and sparks. For a moment they lay in the mud, gasping. His body was pressed against hers, every inch of her trembling beneath him. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice raw. She nodded, her eyes wide, rain streaming down her cheeks. "You saved my life." "Don't sound so surprised." A laugh escaped her, breathless, hysterical, and utterly beautiful. "You saved my life?" she repeated, reaching up to touch his face. "You moved before you could calculate the odds. You trusted your instincts. He didn't have an answer for that. He just looked at her, really looked at her, the woman he'd spent years hating, the enemy he'd tried so hard to destroy, and he saw her, not the rival, not the surgeon, her. My father, he said slowly, never stopped blaming himself, but he also never stopped loving. The two things destroyed him. He brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. I think I've been so afraid of making his mistakes that I forgot how to live. And now, she whispered, now I think I'd rather make his mistakes than never have tried at all. He kissed her then, there in the mud with rain pouring down and the world falling apart around them. It was a kiss born of adrenaline and fear and something far deeper. It was desperate, hungry, and utterly consuming. She pulled him closer, her hands fisting in his shirt, and he felt the walls he'd built around his heart crumble into dust. CT2. The falling scene 4. Aftermath. They stumbled back into the cabin, dripping wet, shivering with cold and desire. The generator was dead, but the fireplace was still glowing. They stripped off their soaked clothes, and Eris wrapped them both in a thick wool blanket. Is this a bad idea? Helen asked, her voice barely audible. The worst, he admitted. Our careers are on the line, our reputations, everything we've worked for. And yet, he pulled her closer, their bodies pressing together under the blanket. And yet I can't seem to care. They didn't make it to the bedroom. They made love in front of the fire, slow and exploratory at first, then urgent and breathless. Every touch was a confession. Every kiss was an apology. When it was over, they lay tangled together, the fire casting golden shadows across their skin. I've hated you for 5 years, Helen murmured against his chest. 5 years, 3 months, and 11 days, Eris corrected. I counted, she laughed, slapping his chest. You counted? You really are a robot. Not a very good one, he admitted, because I've also dreamed about you for 5 years, 3 months, and 11 days. I just convinced myself it was loathing. She propped herself up on one elbow, her eyes searching his. You dreamed about me? Every night. In my dreams, you were always screaming at me. But sometimes, he hesitated. Sometimes it was different. Different how? He traced the line of her jaw, her lips, the curve of her neck. Sometimes you were looking at me, the way you're looking at me now, and I couldn't figure out what it meant. Until now. She kissed him again, softer this time. So what happens after? She asked. When we go back to the real world? He didn't have an answer. He just held her tighter and listened to the storm howling outside. Scene 5. The investigation over the next 2 days. Something shifted. They still worked on their defense, but now they worked together. He respected her instincts. She respected his methodology. They cross-referenced their notes, comparing patient files, searching for anomalies. I don't understand, Helen said, frowning at a printout. These discrepancies aren't random. They're targeted. Specific patients. Specific procedures. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for. Someone inside one of our hospitals, Eris agreed. Or someone with access to both. That's impossible. The security protocols at St. Jude's are not impossible, he interrupted. Just difficult. But if someone had a grudge or a financial motive, they looked at each other, the same thought dawning simultaneously. Serena, Helen breathed. Your sister. She's always resented me. Ever since we were kids. She was the smart one, the ambitious one. I was just the nice one. When I became a surgeon, she said I was wasting my potential. She said I could have been the best lawyer in the country. Would she go this far? Frame you for malpractice? Destroy everything you've built? Helen's face was pale. She tried to destroy my engagement once. Convinced my fiancé I was cheating on him. Took me years to repair the damage. She's capable of anything. Eris grabbed his laptop. Then we need to find proof. If she's the one behind this, there will be a digital trail. Emails, financial transactions, something. They worked through the night, cross-referencing timestamps, tracing IP addresses, following the digital breadcrumbs. By dawn, they had it. A series of encrypted emails between Serena and a junior technician at Meridian General. The technician had been paid to alter patient records. The money trail led back to a shell company registered under a pseudonym Serena had used since college. "We have her," Eris said, exhaustion and triumph warring in his voice. "We actually have her." Helen was crying. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as she shook. "My own sister," she whispered. "My own blood. Some people are broken in ways we can't fix," he said softly. "But we can stop her. We can clear our names. And we can move on." She looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed. Move on to what? He didn't answer, because he didn't know. Scene 6. The confession that night, they sat by the fire. Not as adversaries, not as investigators, but as two people who had seen each other at their worst and somehow found something precious. "I've never told anyone this," Helen began. "But I didn't just become a surgeon to save people. I became a surgeon because I was running away." From what? From her. From Serena. From the constant competition, the constant belittling. If I was a surgeon, I was in a different world. I was untouchable. Or so I thought. She laughed bitterly. "Turns out, nowhere is safe from family." Eris took her hand. "My mother left when I was 7. After my father's mistake, she couldn't handle the shame. She said he was a monster. I grew up believing I was the son of a monster. So I built this fortress around myself. Rules, protocols, distance. I thought if I was perfect, I'd never be like him." "You're nothing like him," Helen said fiercely. "No," he agreed. "I'm exactly like him. I almost made the same mistake. I let fear dictate my choices. I let my pride destroy my relationships. But I'm trying to be better. You already are better." He kissed her forehead, her temple, the corner of her mouth. "So are you. You chose to be a healer instead of a destroyer. That takes more courage than I'll ever have." They made love again, slower this time, more deliberate. Each touch was a promise. Each whisper was a future they couldn't yet see but desperately wanted to build. ACT 3. The Redemption. Scene 7. The Betrayal. The fifth night. The storm had finally broken, leaving the world washed clean and silent under a canopy of stars. Eris and Helen lay in bed, exhausted but content, their bodies still humming with the aftershocks of their passion. "I think we have enough evidence to—" The sound of a key turning in the lock cut him off. He shot upright, his heart lurching. Helen scrambled for the sheets, her eyes wide with panic. The door swung open, and a woman walked in. She was tall, impeccably dressed in a designer raincoat, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her face was a mirror of Helen's, the same cheekbones, the same sharp green eyes, but colder, harder. Her smile was a knife. "Well, well," Serena Vance drawled, her gaze sweeping over the rumpled bed, Helen's flushed cheeks, Eris's bare chest. "Looks like the isolated defense strategy is progressing intimately." Helen went pale. "Serena? What are you doing here?" "Your lawyer sent me," Serena said, tossing a manila envelope on the table. "As your personal assistant, it's my job to ensure you have all the necessary files for your defense." She picked up a framed photo from the mantel, a picture of Helen at her medical school graduation. "And as your sister, it's my job to ensure you don't make an even bigger mess of things than you already have." She looked pointedly at Eris. "Do you have any idea who you're sleeping with? Dr. Thorne?" Eris's mind raced. He'd never met Serena. He only knew the name from the periphery. A legal counsel, a shadow figure in Helen's family drama. He looked at Helen, a cold, chilling doubt creeping into his chest. "What is she talking about?" he asked. Serena laughed, a brittle, jarring sound. "The real Helen Vance isn't just a trauma surgeon. She's the chief legal counsel for St. Jude's. She was the one who orchestrated the whole smear campaign against Meridian General. She engineered this very scandal to bring you down. Dr. Thorne. She just had to be the one to deliver the coup de grace. Helen's eyes widened in sheer panic. That's a lie. Serena, stop this. This was your idea. You were the one who suggested I go undercover as a surgeon at a rival hospital to find a weakness. But I couldn't go through with it. I quit the legal team. I became a surgeon. I never. Undercover, Eris repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. The room seemed to tilt around him. You were undercover? At first, yes, Helen pleaded. But I couldn't do it. I saw what Serena was doing, the manipulation, the lies. I quit. I chose surgery. I chose a real life. Please, Eris, you have to believe me. Eris looked from Serena's triumphant smirk to Helen's desperate face. The initial shock gave way to a cold, hard betrayal that seeped into his bones. Everything, he said flatly. The fear of the dark. The story about your mother. The kiss in the rain. Just reconnaissance. The finality in his voice broke something in Helen. No, the fear was real. The story about my mother was real. Serena is lying. She was the legal counsel. She's my twin sister. And she's been trying to destroy me my entire life. When I found out she was behind the malpractice frame-up, I started gathering evidence to clear both of us. That's what's in that file she brought. Eris's gaze flickered to the envelope. Serena's confident smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. What's in the file, Serena? Eris asked slowly, getting out of bed, his voice dangerously quiet. Nothing, Serena snapped, reaching for it. Eris was quicker. He snatched the envelope, tore it open, and pulled out the contents. It wasn't a legal strategy. It was a collection of emails, memos, and financial records, all leading back to one name, Serena Vance. The documents detailed how she had manipulated patient records, bribed the junior technician, and expertly framed her own sister and her rival to eliminate them both from the running for the top legal spot at the National Medical Ethics Council. The storm had finally broken. The truth was out, and it was far more devastating than the lie. Serena backed toward the door, her composure finally cracking. You'll never prove it, she hissed. I'll deny everything. I'll destroy you both. You won't have the chance, Helen said, her voice steady now, icy with resolve. I've already sent copies to my lawyer. You're finished, Serena. It's over. Serena fled into the night, the door slamming behind her. Scene 8. The aftermath. Dawn broke, pale and watery, over the Shenandoah Mountains. The cabin was quiet except for the crackling fire and the distant chirping of birds. Eris and Helen sat at the oak table, the file of evidence between them. The anger had faded, replaced by a hollow exhaustion. I should have told you, Helen said quietly, about the undercover thing, about Serena. I was so ashamed that I'd even considered it. You should have told me, Eris agreed, but I understand why you didn't. We were enemies. We were supposed to destroy each other. Instead, She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Instead, we found each other. I thought I'd lost you, she admitted, her voice cracking. When Serena walked in and told you all those lies, I thought I'd lost you forever. I thought so too, he said. But then I looked at you, really looked, and I realized, if this was all a lie, it was the most beautiful lie I'd ever experienced. And I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe in us. Helen laughed, a wet, broken sound. You're such a romantic, Dr. Thorne. Don't tell anyone, he said, a ghost of a smile on his lips. I have a reputation to maintain. They sat in silence for a while, holding hands across the table. So what happens now? She asked eventually. We clear our names, he said. We go back to our hospitals. We rebuild our reputations. We testify against Serena and make sure she never hurts anyone again. And us? He squeezed her hand. I don't know. The media will have a field day if they find out about us. Two rival doctors, forced together, falling in love? It's a scandal waiting to explode. I know. She pulled her hand away, her face crumpling. So this is it. We go back to our separate lives. We pretend like nothing happened. Or, he said slowly, we use the scandal to our advantage. She looked up, confused. What do you mean? We've been rivals for years. People expect us to hate each other. If we're seen together, even if we're seen arguing, no one will suspect anything. We can continue our relationship in the shadows. We can meet in secret. We can build something real, away from the cameras and the gossip. Helen stared at him. You want to have a secret affair? That's your solution. Not an affair, he corrected. A partnership, private life. We keep our professional reputations intact, but in our personal time we have each other. It's risky, it's complicated, but it's better than losing you. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real smile, the kind he'd only seen once before, in the rain, when he'd saved her life. You're insane, she said. Probably. And I'm insane for even considering this. Definitely. So we're both insane. He leaned across the table, kissing her softly. The best relationships are. At least that's what I'm told. Scene 9. The return 3 days later, they walked into the National Medical Ethics Council together. They were dressed in their finest, Eris in a three-piece suit, Helen in a navy pantsuit. Their faces were masks of professional composure. We have evidence, Eris announced, sliding the file across the table. It wasn't malpractice. It was sabotage, orchestrated by Helen's sister, Serena Vance. Councilwoman Hayes flipped through the documents, her expression unreadable. You're telling me your sister framed you? Yes, Helen said. She was trying to eliminate both of us to secure her own promotion. The data manipulation, the falsified reports, it was all her. The council deliberated for 30 minutes. Then Hayes returned, her expression grave. We've reviewed the evidence. You're both exonerated. We'll be issuing a full retraction and pursuing charges against Serena Vance. She paused. I have to say, doctors, we didn't expect you to work so well together. Your collaboration has been impressive. Eris and Helen exchanged a glance, one that the council members couldn't interpret, but that spoke volumes between them. We're professionals, Helen said smoothly. Completely, Eris agreed. Our rivalry is suspended. Indefinitely, Helen added. The council members nodded approvingly, oblivious to the undercurrent of shared conspiracy between them. Scene 10. The packed 2 weeks later, they met in a secluded hotel room in Baltimore. No cameras, no press, just them. So, Helen said, kicking off her heels and collapsing onto the bed. We survived. We survived, Eris agreed, loosening his tie. Our reputations are intact. Serena is facing federal charges, and we have a secret that no one knows about. Accept us. Accept us. She propped herself up on her elbows, looking at him with a mix of amusement and adoration. So what's the plan, Dr. Thorne? How do we do this? He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. We continue to be rivals in public. We argue at conferences. We snipe at each other in medical journals. But in private, we're partners. We meet here in neutral cities. We take weekends away. We build something real, far from the spotlight. It sounds exhausting, she said. It will be, he admitted. But it'll be worth it. She pulled him down onto the bed, wrapping her arms around his neck. I love you, she said quietly. Even though I should hate you, even though this is a terrible idea. He kissed her forehead. I love you too, and I've never been more terrified in my life. Good, she said, grinning. Then we're on the same page. Scene 11. Epilogue 6 months later, the medical conference in Chicago was packed. 1,000 doctors, journalists, and industry professionals filled the convention center, buzzing with gossip and intellectual curiosity. Dr. Eris Thorne sat on a panel, facing his longtime rival, Dr. Helen Vance. They were discussing the future of surgical protocols, a polite euphemism for their ongoing disagreement. "If I may," Helen said, her voice dripping with faux condescension. "Dr. Thorne's approach is excellent for theoretical models, but in practice you have to adapt. You have to trust your instincts." "My instincts are guided by data," Eris countered, leaning forward. "Unlike some people, I don't trust gut feelings when a patient's life is on the line." The audience murmured. The rivalry was still alive and well. No one suspected a thing. After the panel, they retreated to their separate green rooms. But later that night, they met in a private suite at a hotel across town, neutral ground, no cameras, no witnesses. "That went well," Helen said, pouring 2 glasses of champagne. "I think I saw you almost smile when I called you a theoretical dinosaur." "I did smile," Eris admitted. "It was very hard not to." They clinked glasses, the champagne bubbles rising like tiny stars. "To the pact," Helen said. "To the pact," Eris agreed. "May our rivalry never die, and our love never fade." They kissed, long and deep, the sound of the city humming below them. They'd found a way, a complicated, secret, beautiful way to have everything. Their careers, their reputations, and each other. It wasn't perfect. It was better. Thanks for sticking around until the end. If you found this story interesting, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And if you want to hear plenty more stories just like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more to unpack in future videos. See you soon.